All right, I think we're on here. Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to the April 16th, 2025 Plastow Planning Board meeting. Charlene, if you take the roll call, please.
Richard Anthony,
Here.
Karen Robinson,
Assume en route.
in route. Very good. Rich Leclerc,
I assume en route also.
assume that, okay.
Yes, until
Nolan
otherwise.
Pelletier,
Present.
Bill Coy,
Here.
Liz Costa. Here.
Yeah.
Who did I miss? Oh, Dan, how did I miss you? You're right up to, I've already marked you off as being here, so. Dan Kane,
I am here.
Excellent.
sorry. Let me put my glasses back on, huh? Oh, there you go.
All right, I guess before we start getting into the agenda, I think, Bill, you have some news that you might want to share.
Yeah, and unfortunately yesterday, the town, we lost one of the true icons and pioneers of the town, Norm Major, passed away yesterday morning. You don't have to look too far to see his fingerprints all over things in this town. The water line is like due to him. So many things that he did in town, Timberlane with the school. I mean, the list could go on and on. I believe he was like a selectman, started back in the 60s, and I think he was a state rep here for probably 26 to 30
26
years,
years.
something like that. I mean, so quite a while. I mean, he really served the town and the town well. And I think the town of Plastow is definitely a better place for having Norm and his family lived here. So, with that, if we could, just take a quick moment of silence. Thank you, and if we can all just keep Brenda and the boys and the whole family in your prayers. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yep, good guy.
I think you were saying, Liz, you were saying something to the effect that he was there instrumental or present with respect to Timberlane School being established.
I believe when he did his talk last year for the 275th anniversary of the town, he was instrumental in negotiating the development of Timberlane, and I also know, I believe he was part of that teachers union strike back in the 80s.
He was, and I'll tell you, if you can go back and look at that talk, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is.
When he tells the story about it.
They were building something at their home, and he was covered in mud, and they had to pull him to go over and help the negotiations.
Negotiations, and I guess the one thing is his picture was in the paper. He had a white T-shirt on with all the mud over it because he was digging like a new well at his place. And I guess his mother-in-law said to him, "Couldn't you have cleaned up and worn a better shirt?"
Take that.
That's Norm.
Yeah, true gentleman.
Yes.
True gentleman.
I'm sure he'll be missed. All right. That said, I think there should be some minutes that we can review. Or we could. Elevator.
Karen, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from our April 2nd, 2025 meeting.
I have a point of clarification, if you
Yes.
don't mind.
Rich is here.
On page 2, concerning the motion, it says motion failed 2-0 to 3. So I could be mistaken, but under my perception, that would be it passes. Because it would be a majority vote, even with the abstentions. The abstentions are neutral.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Under New Hampshire law, abstentions are treated as if they voted with the majority, and as long as you have a quorum, the majority prevails, even if it was 1-0 with 4 abstentions.
I believe that's correct, actually.
And I will tell you where that came from is I just took a training with NHMA, and they went over the legal case and and how that works under New Hampshire law. And this was all in the context of them telling planning boards not to abstain.
Yeah, so in a sense is, I think if the perception is that an abstention somehow is invalidating a quorum, it doesn't do that.
Well, we should probably get clarification just to make sure.
Yeah, well, we can,
We can table this and just, I'll rescind my motion and just to make sure.
yeah,
Yeah, no, we can do that.
that's fine, but it's an absolute.
Yeah. It's,
Oh, it could be, but I'd rather be safe than sorry.
all right. Any other changes or anything in the minutes that need to be reviewed or anything like that? I mean, we could look it up now if we wanted to, right? We do have access to the internet. Or we can just forward it for a relevant review if anyone.
I'd be in favor of just putting it off till the next
We,
meeting.
we can put
Get
it off. I
clarification.
mean, I don't think
It's only approving minutes. It's,
All right, so for purpose of minutes and in particular, page 2, with respect to the vote that was taken to establish a new officer position, secretary for the planning board, we'll provide the relevant citations about, in this particular instance, a vote 2, none against, and then you have 3 abstentions. All right, so we'll take a look at that. All right. So in light of the fact that we didn't have any applications before the board, I think we'll just kind of treat this as a workshop, probably pick up where we left off. And then we can just discuss any old business or new business or anything that we want to do going forward. All right. So I think as of last meeting, I think we had gone through our various bylaws where, at least we had some proposed edits or some annotations and such. And I think we did get through. Did we get through all of that? What I remember?
I believe so, and I think we were going to
Yeah,
send it for review, is that correct?
we did. We got through it, but I went back and again, made some edits and clarifications and mostly just trying to fix the format, which was kind of chopped up all over the place, but that's kind of where I am. I should have the redraft out tomorrow.
Okay. Then we'll just have that circulated. And so if
Yeah.
anyone else has anything that they want to have looked at or to debate, by the board as a whole, then we'll at least have until next meeting to look at it, and then we can. And then if there isn't anything, and then we're just debating edits and stuff like that, we should probably then think about taking a vote on it. And in this case, we have to at least go through the 2 readings subsequent to making the changes, and that before they take effect. Now,
Yeah.
again, to refresh my memory, we did change that in here, right?
Yes,
Okay, so subsequent to voting on it, hopefully next meeting, and then 2 subsequent readings, we won't have to do 2 subsequent readings. Okay, so I think that.
so on this draft, I highlighted things and I put notes in the margins.
Okay,
So they give a little bit of background of what the change was, or what the change was.
all right.
Versus just the editorial, the way Word works,
Mhm.
which takes things out and underlines things. So I
So
just did,
for purposes then, once we have that, we'll distribute it
yeah.
as soon as we can.
I should have that tomorrow. I was shooting for that period anyways. I wasn't anticipating
Yeah,
this meeting as being as open as it is.
exactly. All right. So until Karen shows up, Ms. Robinson. I'm going to appoint Nolan Pelletier as a voting member until such time. All right.
Have to vote on that or no?
What's that?
That's not a vote action. It's-
No, but yeah, this could be. You'll be sent back down to the minors in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Thanks for putting me in, coach.
All right. All right, so the subdivision site plan regulations, again, just these, I understand, is still pending RPC combining the two.
No, it's, so we're waiting for we're waiting for Steve Keach
Right.
to provide his technical input. Because all the soil sample lot sizing stuff, I expect that's remained relatively unchanged, but we need an engineer to look at that. I don't.
Okay, all right, so I'm just conflating, sorry,
Yeah.
the master plan and this. All right, so with respect to the subdivision, that we are, our consultant's supposed to be reviewing them. I asked for an update today. And I think we have at least, the update is that at next meeting, we'll probably have that review completed. And, so it'll be available for us to contemplate.
And so the only thing I did was go back and clean it up a little bit, but not really change any of the edits, other than I did the bulk of the work in fixing all the definitions. So matching up the definitions with the zoning ordinance,
Right.
which was a lot. There was a lot of work there, but that was the only work I've done on that.
All right, so next meeting or so, then hopefully we'll have two levels of analysis. One will be from our consultant, and we can review those, and then there'll be some editorial stuff that, whether or not it's material or not. And this requires a public hearing too, I believe, right?
Same thing.
Yeah, so this, subsequent to a review and voting on it, public hearing would have to be scheduled.
I think mercifully on this, it's not the two readings, it's just the public
Yeah,
hearing.
it's just a public hearing. All right. And I guess since the master plan portion was mentioned, I did ask for an update, or at least, from RPC, just to have them, when we can expect that. All right, so I guess the way I see it is until, at least next update will probably be when can I reasonably expect to see, because we're like 1 year into it. I mean, we did something, it reflects a certain amount of grant work that was done, and we still don't have the finished product that we're putting out there. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a ballpark. when we
Only
can
a
expect-
year?
Yeah, only.
You're dealing with government here, right?
Well,
Only
I
a
mean,
year?
just say that you're not going to do it, or round it up to the nearest month.
You don't want my opinion on this.
I'm trying to be optimistic,
Year?
put a shine on it, But
Unfortunate.
um, keep me honest here. Was there some subsequent to those items? Are we looking at maybe reviewing maybe some zoning that was at least?
That was on the
We'll
list.
Just talk about it.
I haven't done anything with that since, quite frankly, I was more focused on these two things since they're sitting right in front of us.
Okay.
I mean, So there's no sword of Damocles hanging over our head as a result of zoning. I think these two we can get off our plate. The zoning stuff, it seems to me, a lot of that's going to be driven by whatever happens up at the state.
All right. So later on, maybe, I mean, again, I followed up today to see if we could have that legislative update. It gets pushed email-wise to everybody. I hope everybody's getting it. But also I'd ask that could be hosted on the planning board page of the town's website. All right.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to be able to have the formatted portion of it. All right. But I think we can have a link to the source information that was being used to format it into a spreadsheet format.
Yeah, how can we get a spreadsheet? Is there any way we can get that done out? I tried it and it didn't work.
Oh, what's that?
You get an actual spreadsheet, the long one.
Printed out?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the only problem with it running out, being printed out, is that you have hyperlinks in there that you're not going to obviously be able to utilize if you're printing it out.
oh, you can't print it out that way, but
And it's really the way
It's
it's
linked,
layered is
right.
for a spreadsheet not to be printed.
Yes,
It just,
exactly.
it's,
right, so I guess I'm asking, is there a copy we can get of an actual spreadsheet? I guess that's what I'm asking.
In an Excel format?
Yep.
Yeah, I think you either need to have it hosted that way on the website, right? In that sense, you'd be able to interact with and see it. I can actually, I think we'll take another bite at the apple on that one. I mean, I understand the logic that you know, there was some concern about the formatting of the of the information being somehow, I don't think what's the word, associated with the town. But I don't know if that's necessarily a legitimate
Well,
concern.
one concern I would have with it is, you know, this is a work product that comes out of the RPC,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and then it goes to Tim, you know,
Right, and then he
And that-
sends,
but Tim's making some editorial comments on there. I don't know necessarily if those should be shared with everyone. It's just, I mean, there's nothing offensive, believe me. I go through it
No.
every
Yeah.
week. But
But
it's
I
his
guess,
work product.
yeah, but I guess my point is that he's he is a commissioner, you know, for Plastow to RPC.
right, still representative, so.
So, you know, it isn't like we're having somebody, you know, at Kinko's or something like that do it.
No, and to me, if we want to make reference to like what's going on, reference NHMA. They do a fairly good summary of all the stuff that's going on. And
Yeah, I
it's
guess-
a website link and not
Well,
not someone trying to navigate through the spreadsheet. You know what I mean?
so I guess, so that's what we can expect. Like on the planning site, there'll be a link to the source material,
Okay,
right? So that it just won't be in the formatted, in the format that we're getting pushed in terms of a spreadsheet, because that's being processed and there's some analysis that's being done on it. But in addition to getting the email push with the legislative updates, we should have it hosted, at least source information wise, on the planning page of the town's page. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
I mean,
I'm like, okay, there's your update on that. If that was connected to a larger point, I think I just lost it.
Squirrel.
Yeah. So I think, so the whole point of it is that if we're going to have zoning that's going to be driven by what's happening with respect up in Concord, the legislative update is going to be hosted source-wise on the town's page in planning, in addition to the formatted version that's in your email push. So
yes.
I guess that's where I was going with that. You know, and then there are like maybe one or two zoning that didn't necessarily pass that from last time around that maybe we want to look at it. again, because I think one of them might have been just sort of a casualty of alls it was, yeah, alls it was moving information from one section to another section, and for some reason that got voted down, which,
People don't understand that.
yeah, so.
Exactly.
So I don't necessarily think I don't think it's controversial. I think it might just require
Well, I personally think that whole Article 5 that we have needs to be looked at for formatting, not necessarily for substance. It cries out to just be in table form like I've seen in probably 20 other zoning ordinances. So I think that one zoning ordinance might be 40 pages. You could cut that down substantially
Got it.
by looking at that in a table format. That's just, was one of the things on my kind of to think about list.
When you overload the public with that much paper, they're not gonna read it, they're not gonna understand it. You have to simplify it as much as you can.
All you had to do is look at the ballot and how many people just didn't even vote.
Because they have
Left it blank.
no clue.
Yeah,
They
it
have no
was,
clue.
I will,
it was a big number with the people left blank when we were counting the ballots that night.
I will tell you, it's about average. I went back and looked at every
The other
election
ones, right.
till 2018. And, we average 11 zoning ordinances on the ballot. We had 11 this time.
I think, but there was a lot of meat to these ones.
Yeah,
More
no.
so than other
Yeah,
ones.
no, we definitely
No
have to cut
question,
that
but
I
down.
mean,
there-
it was like 11 pages, this ballot, that's the most I can
Oh,
remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
no, to that point, I think we should at least build in a little bit of runway so that whatever we do for zoning, we don't do the public hearings, backload all of them at the end. I mean, if we have something that's in good order and makes sense, then, it's probably something we should vote on and, kind of send
Right.
and schedule a hearing of some kind. And after it's done, maybe even just formulate the suggested topical description, right? So that can be forwarded on to the clerk's office, and in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen, they can, use it, because I don't think these things had topical descriptions on them.
That's the big,
No,
It was just a picture of
no.
like, this looks like a table of contents. What do you think?
People need to be educated, and you gotta do it in late terms, because it's too complicated. They have no idea and they walk away from it.
or they vote no or
Right.
right.
Because on each one of the zoning, it averaged, I think, almost 300 non-votes, no votes. They didn't vote at all.
Just because they have
They
no
just
idea
left it
they have no idea what it means. They have no idea what it means.
I think a lot of people too with this election, they showed up, they were just voting on the school and that was it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, they definitely showed up at the school,
Definitely
definitely.
voting on the school, that's for sure.
So you had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it was a frothy
Definitely.
election. All right. Well, I guess, I'll intersperse just because we're sort of talking about it. Again, I asked for an update. I've been corresponding with the director at RPC. It looks like there is an appetite, or things might have changed staffing-wise, for them to actually have discuss having a circuit rider. So I left it with the town manager, at least, that, we obviously need to discuss what that, we have a budget for it. A contract would have to be drawn up, and we'd have to kind of specify what we're actually looking for.
Yeah, the budget, I believe, was half of what it was the year before. It wasn't the full amount. Which basically you're almost 4 months into it anyways now.
Right. So whatever, but we did leave money at least.
Right, that's what I'm saying, it was like half,
Yeah,
I believe it was
before
half.
It was for that.
Because when it was looked at, when we were doing the budget season, it was all right. We're not gonna have one, at least for the first half of the year, probably.
All right.
So we can so that money wasn't put in the budget for that. But now you figure, you might as well say we're into May now, right?
Yeah.
Very much.
So if it's half the year, that gives you 6 months, right? So we're almost at the 6 month mark anyways.
All right, so that basically Again, I haven't heard back in terms of, did we have a conversation with Mark Roche? Is there, where we are in that? I asked for an update on that, and, so I think before next meeting, it's reasonable to at least have, where we stand. Are we going to have that type of conversation? And, I think if we're having the planning board have some input on it, what would we be interested in having a circuit rider do?
Right. Russ.
Last time we had a circuit rider here, we were interested in building out the housing portion of the master plan. And also, some hours would be applied to either being present when there's an application in front of us or in a workshop type sessions, just sort of being the expert on hand and providing input. So is there any thoughts on what, if we were to, just sort of inform that process, if that process isn't ongoing right now? Is there any thoughts what we want to do with that?
I'm hoping that whoever we do get, we're going to concentrate more now on the plan. The housing, I think we've completed pretty well.
Right, we're waiting.
You're talking the master plan, right?
Yeah, the master plan.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we wanted to do something like that, is there a particular portion? Is it?
I think helping us, just gauge what's the next areas that have to be updated. Because, I'm not quite sure of what the schedule is, what's been done. I'm sure it's around. I just haven't asked to see it. Is that, to me, is the biggest thing, is because I suspect we're already sitting behind on housing has been done, but it's not in the plan, Is economic development, I think, was the next up, but
That's what we should do.
we haven't done much on that yet. And so that's definitely, and then whatever's supposed to be coming up for the next time is going to be staring us in the face. So
So
I think we should do
we have the
economic
discussion prior to a contract being drawn up, then we're going to want that type of analysis.
Yeah.
It's like we have master plan stuff. We want to know, maybe a quick look to say that, you're behind schedule on X, Y, and Z. Maybe we should, put in, set a schedule, but start working on a particular section, et cetera.
well, the benefit of having RPC is they have access to all of that information. We've got to go out and find it, hunt it down, decide whether it's relevant. And then, at least it narrows the process fairly.
Big time.
Yeah.
If you look at the chart that we had, that we've had over the last 3-4 years now, the chart was always leading to, as Tim kept saying, it's economic development, that we've never looked at that for 5 years now. And that was going to be next. But housing came in, and we did, and we worked on the housing, and it was more than a year. It was 2 years, almost 3.
Housing's a hot topic,
Exactly. And
Everyone's
that's why
excited
we
about
did
it.
it.
Yes.
But now we should have the chance to do on economic development, which we haven't touched for so long. Why wouldn't we want to try to catch that up?
All right.
That's my point. That's all. I mean, there's lots of things that we have fallen behind on, but that one just seemed to be a major one that I thought that we needed.
Well, and
we
it
need to
doesn't
look at.
exist, just so you know, it doesn't exist in the master plan now. So you have to write that whole section.
Exactly.
Well, I've asked, for example, 2 towns, Wyndham, number 1. And I was going to bring that paperwork with me, but I said I wanted to wait till I got their answer from them. What I did was I got how they even set up their master plan. That's what I wanted to know, how did they do the different committees? And what they've got is a planning board, also separate, a whole committee on economic development. That's exactly what it's listed as. They've got other things on there too. They've got housing on there too. But economic development, he said, is what they're working on now. And what they did was have only 1 representative from the planning board, or 2. And then the rest of it is actually a committee where you've got your, the public and anybody that would have an interest in businesses small businesses that we've been trying to get, and we could do
So
something
they, so
with
you're,
the commerce.
so you're saying that they have other, like, non-board members, like people.
Right, they have a
from the-
committee
From
set
the
up.
community.
Yes,
There's a
they
couple-
have an
there's a
actual
couple towns
committee
that
set
have
up.
that. They have their own
Yeah, that's not
steering
uncommon.
committee.
Yeah.
No, but the planning board is still the one that's setting it up. They're following their master plan. And so he said he would give to me the actual goals. They actually wrote it out and how they wrote it out. I thought that might be helpful to us, so we can actually follow something and have a pattern.
If somebody always created the wheel, there's no reason to recreate it. You
Absolutely,
just tweak it.
absolutely.
So that's what I'm waiting for.
I think that's a task, and you can be officially tasked with.
Well, if I have to go
collecting
over
that-
there, I'll get it. So
Collecting that
one way or the other.
information from our fellow
They better
municipalities.
not make Karen go get it.
I'll go get it, believe me.
The master plan subcommittee should just take a minute after the meeting, and we should set a date sooner than later to get this rolling.
Yep.
So we can have something to report back to the board, maybe even by the next meeting. And that would be the
That's
next
what I'm
course of
hoping to
action.
have the papers, at least for mine. Did you have some towns too?
Yeah, I actually looked at a few different towns. I mean, like you said, every town is different.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, a lot of it's kind of boilerplate stuff. It's just like, oh, we're going to continue to, promote economic growth. We have town water now, so like that's, probably will help aid in some businesses that couldn't be on 125, but like
Right.
we have limiting factors. We don't have, we don't have sewer going, so it's like we're gonna.
Now, the water was the big thing. That was definitely,
Well, just remember, the way water works is what comes in has to have a way to go out.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so if you don't have sewer necessarily, just having water, it's better than not having water,
Right.
but it's not the end all. It doesn't solve the problem.
What is the plan with the town water right now? I've been looking into this for about a lot of reasons. It runs 125. It runs this building and a few pieces around here. Do we have any plan to go like up and down 121 or anything? Or-
If we can get money.
Like,
yeah,
it-
Is it money?
yes,
That
there
is?
is a
That's
schedule.
it.
There
Well,
is a
Hold on,
schedule.
hold on. I got.
not to be selfish, but like at least to my house,
I don't personally need it. My water's fine.
I-
But
I
it's
don't-
like, I was looking at a property up the street with a friend of mine. He's a realtor. I'm not involved in it. But just want to make that clear. And the well is so bad that she's trying to put a daycare, which in a place has been a daycare for decades until a few years ago. And the water is atrocious. They want $15,000 for a water softener filtration system. I'm like, I don't know who you're dealing with here, but that's like crazy. And it's like literally the water's on 125. It's up here, but it's just not there. And I'm wondering, are they ever going to just, I mean, my water's bad at my house too, but whatever. Are they ever going to run it anymore?
A lot
It's
of
very
it's-
expensive to do.
It is.
Very
Yes,
expensive.
there is a schedule.
I mean, but there's got to be, grants to be able to get it done.
Is that what it is, federal grants?
And that's what a lot of it is, and it's going to be tough getting them done.
We did do.
Yeah.
We did have a presentation, what was it, maybe 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years
Yep.
ago. We did have a presentation about, the,
I have
where
the
we
work
are
at
with
home.
respect to
I've got
water.
the paperwork at home. I'll
and
go look it up.
what it would look like if, like a perfect universe
So many
of
years.
unlimited funding, in terms of a loop here and
course.
loops there. And I think there was some conversation about, you have a number of like community wells,
Yep.
Yes.
maybe even looping or approaching some of those communities and saying that, having them basically patch in, to whatever the town water infrastructure.
And
is.
that's being done.
Yeah.
Because my development had a community well, and they patched into it. Pennachuck
Okay.
patched
Well,
into it.
Pennachuck and Lewis.
Yeah.
The two of the biggest ones around there.
Yeah, so they've patched in, was up on Culver Street, they patched in up there.
Did they?
And how far up have they gone now on 125? They did go a C3 now, right?
They're just about, well, they're gonna be, we got a grant and we've had bids come in to go down Wilder Drive, up Old County a little bit there,
Yeah.
that way. So that's gonna get done. We got a grant for that.
Is it
Off
possible?
of 125?
Yeah.
That's off of 125? Oh,
Is it possible to have sort of a briefing of some kind? From whoever is managing if
Yeah.
it's, and just say that, where we're at
Yeah.
and to ask those sort of questions. Like,
Where
where do they want to go?
Plastow water is not great.
Well-
From a lot of reasons.
we've had. no
Just
trouble.
natural from the granite.
Right.
And then all the Superfund sites and things.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of nasty, and I guess some of the
Depends
water
where you
comes down
live,
from
too, in
Manchester.
Boston.
And that's
All
where
the
the
water
water is
comes from
coming
there.
from.
It is, so I thought it was just coming from the hydrants from Haverhill.
No, no.
It's
Coming from
Massabesic.
Massabesic?
Yeah.
It comes
Oh.
down there and we're the last town on the line.
I didn't know that. I thought it was coming up from Haverhill.
No.
No kidding. It's like, it's right there. It's right there.
Yeah. No, it's coming all that
All
way.
Massabesic. Okay, interesting. Learn
So
something new every day.
What would it involve if we wanted to have
There was a map that had colors for when they were gonna have them done. What would be
There was at
first,
one
who would be
time, right.
second?
I mean, the goal was, when you could have it done, but obviously you gotta be able to fund it, right? You can't
Right,
just say,
Yeah.
'cause it's expensive to get done. It's
Oh, of course it
unbelievable.
is.
You're talking millions and
Right.
millions of dollars.
Yep.
yeah. So I just wanted to know where
so
on
who
the
do we
chart are
who do we
we?
engage to have a briefing of some kind?
You could probably.
Where we're at with respect to water.
Yeah, I could get together when we talk to Greg.
Okay, no, that'd be great.
I'm sure there's something going on somewhere. I mean, there's got to be something in the master plans I mean, that they're figuring out.
Well, there is, like how the
Distribute this water.
different loops and things
Of
like
course,
that, how
of
we do,
course.
but the problem is it's the funds.
Oh, yeah, well,
Without
someone's got to pay
with
for
those,
it.
you can't do it.
Someone's
We
got to pay
could say,
for it.
okay, this is next, this would be next and all that.
That's big money.
Unless
Well,
someone's
it's big
gonna
money.
pay for it.
No,
big
it's a,
money.
it's a lot of territory and it
Big
just
money.
can't be done all at
Right.
once. And
Big
we
money.
realize that.
We were fortunate enough to get a big grant because of the Superfund site.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there was a couple of those actually.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, the more you look into it, the more you get a little outraged. Like you go up the road of 125 where the Shell station is, you
Yep.
see that there used to be a site that was being remediated.
oh my,
Oh,
you have
that was
no
a lot.
idea what they
Yeah,
did
that was
there.
a
I mean,
lot
you
on
go
that.
back to the 20s and
That's-
30s, it was like the Wild West.
Well, that was a barrel repurposing so that people from Massachusetts would come
Yeah.
up and they were just dumping the material.
They
into a
literally
dry
dumped
well.
it in the ground.
Yeah, rinsed it and then
Yep.
sold the barrels.
I actually knew someone that worked there and he told me that story. I'm like, that's insane.
It's-
Who would do that? Well, they did.
yeah. So, there's all sorts of outrages like
Oh,
that are behind the whole water story.
Oh, yeah.
Last
Anyway, just curious.
All right. What else? Well, I
Did you
guess
finish your point on economic development? I'm
I'm
he
just
took your
saying
water and went off the,
that- No, it's fine. I was just saying that we should take a minute, being that, so we can set a date and get it going.
What was that?
He was saying, he was asked if my thought was done. I was just saying that we need to, the economic master plan needs to have a meeting and set a date. We could do that.
Well,
after.
if you're going to do that, make sure that, at least forward the notice, the noticing
Yeah,
requirement.
well,
It needs, and then, again, you'd have to
together
take,
with you.
you'd have to take minutes. And, and then just have them turned, and remember, you have to have them like within 5 days of said meeting, just so that they're available draft wise. So.
And most of the towns have been pretty good about it. The other two that I asked too, because they said,
Who were the other two?
they would say, well, Epping was one, which was pretty good at goal setting also, but not as informed as we are right now, which I was kind of surprised. And then actually, I didn't know whether you wanted to look at even Atkinson, just right next to us.
I kind of already looked at Atkinson, just
You did,
out of curiosity, because they're about the same size, and I mean,
right.
their stuff was.
Oh, good, okay. Because I just thought most of them do have written somewhere, and that's what I asked. Do you have your goals set? And what are you doing? So we could look at that and get either ideas from them or see how they are doing their form, how are they setting this up for economic development? That's all I was looking for, so.
Yeah, so I think then if there's any preparatory conversation with RPC and fleshing out a contract, it sounds like we want some sort of analysis of where we're at with respect to master plan, what a schedule, updating schedule would look like. And then, and then decide if we're going to focus on one particular one, and then some sort of ancillary services separate from master plan. So hopefully we get some feedback from on that soon.
Yep.
Well, since we're mentioned RPC and master plans, I think it should have been in an email push that I think it sounds like RPC, in that we have to go through updating or reviewing our master plan. RPC as a regional planning body is also doing their own updating a review of their master plan. All right, so it looks like they're soliciting for input, comments, and such. And it's, and I guess it's being directed towards us.
Yeah, I responded. It
So-
just asked you to take a survey and,
Okay.
give you feedback. So I submitted
Surveys
that.
again.
So it's the initial
Yeah,
facing
just-
portion of
yeah.
it's a
What do
survey.
you think? Yeah.
It's harmless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you haven't,
I
so
didn't commit the town to anything.
Yeah, exactly. So what
large
have you-
expenditures or anything. So
what have you done, Dan?
I just,
So to that end, I mean, everyone on the board should probably take a look at it. If it's forward-facing survey-wise, then, your input is, maybe I'll put in a call to Mr. Roche and say, does he want anything else, formally, or just apart from just, this survey that they're interacting with the public on. So,
Is this different from the last survey that they may just go through?
well, it's specific to their master
Okay, so
plan.
it's a change, all right.
Well, yeah, they're going through
Good.
their master plan, so they're using a survey to kind of, and to that point, I mean, you might want to also think that, remember when we did housing, the RPC did construct a survey, for us
After ours.
to do, to reach out and kind of get some analysis or something like that. So, if and when we're discussing what we can do with RPC, with a circuit rider, then, maybe there's a survey component that makes sense, with respect to, master plan, economic development, or some other aspect of the master plan. So, I mean, they could say, that's a great idea. We have one that we can just build, or they could be like, no, we have one that applies to another section that you might want to look at. But I think that's worth discussing, just because we did get a lot of information from that.
No, that was a good one. Also, when you said something about also, what was it, that we were going to ask them, it wasn't just a survey, what was it about? I forgot now. Something you were going to do with the RPC was.
With what?
You were going to ask them something, I forgot now. Didn't have something to do with the master plan, or something else. Okay. I can't think of it now.
Oh, well, let me know when it comes back.
Yeah.
It always does. We'll probably be at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And it's the worst, then you're up. You're not going back to sleep.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, so anything else that, I'm kind of thinking,
I mean, the only thing is we got that letter from the Conservation Commission.
Oh,
okay, that's, all right, that's, everyone, you probably got a letter of some kind notifying you that about an application that at least was being reviewed by the Conservation Commission.
yeah.
Now, from a background perspective, I mean, that was interesting, because it's the first time being on the planning board that I've seen that. But apparently, if there's some sort of, I don't know what the context is, a wetlands disturbance or such.
Somebody's trying to.
Well, this is all related to a conditional use permit that's the
Coming from-
board approved in 22, sometime
It was back
in
away.
July summer of 22. I went back and just looked at the minutes.
You're right.
Yeah.
But the specific notification is being triggered by some action from DES.
Correct, because DES asks for input from the Conservation Commission.
So I guess in that particular input that DES is asking
Been
for
tried
input from the
before.
Conservation Commission, the planning board also is supposed to be CC'd on it. Right, so what you're seeing there is, if something went to the Conservation Commission, the DES is asking them to review. In this particular case, the planning board's being CC'd on it. So I guess that's the context surrounding that.
And my question, I wouldn't even call it a concern, is does that eventually come back to us under the conditional use permit that we approved? And not being on the board at the time, I don't,
Well, I don't know, what was in front of the Conservation Commission. We weren't being asked for input, and I don't think it was anything that we were driving.
no, but it definitely relates to the original conditional use, because that's how,
All right. so-
that's what gave the applicant, the property owner, the permission to, if you will, enter the wetlands and move that driveway,
Driveway is what it
bridge
was
the
all about.
driveway over the way, because that's what the conditional
Right.
use was for, was to bridge that stream that's on the back end
Right,
of the
it's
property
bridge,
there.
building a bridge.
And hey, let's face it, the applicant improved that property, so, I think it's, and the question is, does that somehow, get bounced back to us? And I'm asking the question because I don't know the answer.
I think he has to start over.
Well, something we can
We could, I
put
think-
forward a question, at least to provide context, like,
I
What are we
can look
looking
the
at?
whole thing up.
I think it's probably a good,
Yeah.
like, quick email maybe to council and say, okay, we approved this. It hasn't come back, but is this something that we should at least be better aware of? That's all my,
And I think there was an abutter who was a little involved in this too, and I think that was, one we just had on the board.
all right,
Remember
so
that?
that's something we probably should just sort of, from a narrative
He
perspective.
lives up
sort
there.
of
because
research.
why, when I see something like that, it's okay, it comes to us,
Yeah.
No, that
we
was-
do nothing with it, which is
No,
fine.
I think in terms of like explaining why it came to us is that we're supposed to be on a CC list, okay? And so I guess the fact that we're getting it is, I'm like, okay, so I'm heartened that we received
But
that.
then the question is what aren't we getting?
That's, yeah.
In,
Is this the only time
Yeah.
ever?
in regards to that, is it possible to get an update on what's going on with Main Street, the Main Street project with the state
The traffic calming?
traffic control? Yeah, coming. Thank you.
I had emailed, again, I asked for an update on that. I know that there was supposed to be a meeting between,
Yeah, it was on where Westville is.
right,
Is that, where
Have they had that
Westville is
meeting?
with the barrels, I believe they had it last week.
okay.
Where the barrels are, that's obviously, good. Once the weather
Yeah.
permits, that'll become a permanent thing.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about it. It's not going to be raised. It's just going to be that triangle
Well,
configuration.
Nothing's been finalized or anything at the state level. What they wanted to look is, because the town's doing something right where Westville Ave is there where the barrels are. From my understanding was what the state wanted to do was to see how that was going to affect if they put stop signs or anything else there. They wanted like an update of what we were doing. That's what that meeting was about.
It's
I
taking
had
them
heard
forever.
a whole bunch of other stuff about. The
No,
other
they
side
talked about
Martha
like
Ave.
choking 125 a little bit, but nothing, I haven't seen anything where it's finalized. I think the state is still trying to figure it out.
So they're trying to just make it a single lane
I thought it was
on
supposed to
each
be done
side.
this spring.
So, yeah, instead of the double that it has been for decades.
Because I know they're obviously and looking at West and East Pine Street there, which I think if they do anything there, that would probably just be add a couple stop signs is all that it would be. But the biggest one to pick is, and you know it all too well, Nolan, the biggest area, that's probably might be the biggest area in town.
All right, so I guess, you know, there's obviously a lot of discussion around that. Is there, I mean, is there any reason why the planning board wouldn't be, I mean, the equivalent of being CC'd on those discussions? I mean, it does.
One for Westville Ave, that was already decided a while ago. That was being done, what the town's doing there.
Yeah. But in terms of, you know, that type of
And it's coming
development,
up.
you know.
Right.
is
Yeah,
there-
if something's coming up, I don't see, you know, why. Because obviously they'd have to do an information night, all that stuff would have to happen.
But even those updates or whatever, I mean, I don't necessarily think the whole board has to be there, you know, but, you know, it does seem to be kind of at least tangentially in the planning board's domain, shall we say, you know.
Well, I
if
think
it-
just from awareness.
Yeah, right,
It'd be
exactly.
More
Just
the,
being
probably
aware.
more the awareness, right? Because at the end of the day, that's a state road.
Right.
Yeah, no, not to.
Not to
I don't
change
think
it
the
or-
planning board has any role in quote, you know, approval stuff. That
Right.
doesn't
No, they.
make a lot of sense to
No,
me.
the planning board wouldn't for something
Yeah,
like that.
but awareness, you know,
Yeah.
and as it relates to transportation and the master plan, I mean, that's to me the linkage. you know?
Yeah, if we have, but I don't, right now, there's no real formal update.
Yeah.
Everything's just kind of out there. You know, they've been talking about Main Street, I think, for what, 15 years or whatever, they were gonna do something,
Our
so.
last two surveys showed that that is a very big concern going through town here
No, I think,
from all the surveys.
no, and I agree, and I think everybody agrees with that, but it's getting the state to move and to do something. That's the bigger issue.
Well, there's going to be, although it doesn't involve us, there's going to be a big disruption come 2026, 2027, because new Haverhill is doing their side
Oh,
of North
that's right.
Ave.
Right.
They're going to be putting
Right.
in a rotary. They're going to be doing, I think they're narrowing down the bridge.
They are.
Really?
They're going to be doing a lot of work in that area, and that's going to divert
They're going to be narrowing that bridge?
just at the, yeah, so where
Where
they
the
have those
bridges,
concrete
yeah,
things now,
concrete
it's
things,
going to be
yeah.
a more permanent
Okay.
solution. And that's just to slow the traffic over the bridge. That's why
Right.
they did that, my understanding intentionally. When you come to that point, it kind of bottlenecks you. If you're going fast, you kind of slow down. So, you know, you have enough clearance
We're
to
in
pass.
town
But
now.
with all that work going on, we're probably going to see a large amount of traffic. You know, there's a large amount of traffic that goes to that area now, and then it's now going to be spilled back onto 125. So it's going to be
Coming in that way.
coming the opposite way.
Yep.
If they're doing road work there, people are going to avoid it. People go that way to avoid the other way.
Mhm.
So, you know,
It's funny, I just noticed in the past week or so, they've actually widened the bridge, believe it or not. Its barriers are wider. I don't know, I'm like, something's different.
some
I go over the thing every day. I'm
Huh.
like, all of a sudden, notice it's wider.
I didn't think they'd moved
I don't
them yet
know.
for a
I
while.
don't know what's going on down there. It's Haverhill. You never know what's going on there, but it's actually right this second, it's actually wider. So if they're gonna continue, if they're gonna make it narrower, I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea. I just know that physically right now, it's changed. Somehow it seems wider. They might have taken some of the barrels out. I think the concrete barriers are the same, but the barrels, I think, are what's different.
I say we just put a toll up.
Just a wreck.
Put a toll, you need a
flashing
passport,
light.
you need a passport to come over the border.
Oh, jeez. Bucks
Listen, I
25.
spent a lot of time in Florida. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of tolls.
Jeez.
I know.
It's a lot of tolls.
that wouldn't really help in the economic development
No.
of the master plan.
No, not
Exactly.
really.
It's one of- That's
Exactly.
probably one of the very attractive things to businesses to be in Plastow, to get that over.
No, because let's face it, Plastow, I like to call it, it's a minor town. People come in, they mine for goods and they leave.
That's not a lie.
Okay.
Something's going on with that bridge, though. It definitely feels different.
Mhm.
Never traveled over there for 35, 40 years. Anyway.
Anything else? Burning. I had an email forwarded to you probably at the last minute. Sorry. Okay. But I'd reached out to Southern New England Chamber of Commerce. I
Right.
mean, we've had them in a couple times, and I guess the whole point was tangentially was economic development. All right. So I figured have them come in. They kind of give their sales pitch about what they do, the communities that they operate in, the events that they have, sort of the benefits of being in the chamber and such. So I basically said that, asked them, what their availability is. Right. I think May is they're booked out in May. So tentatively, I said, just pick one of the days in June, like maybe our workshop in June. And we can just adjust off of that. They're basically asking for what it is that we would like to see, in terms of a presentation. I'm comfortable with them doing their sort of the Highwood, the chamber. This is what, reintroducing themselves. But I also, I don't know if it was a year ago, they did have an interesting pitch. And I was thinking about, and it's relevant to the school. All right, because I think that they've actually been championing or pushing, sort of trades type or vocational type scholarship opportunities, right? And in a number of communities they've been working with, they've had these things funded, and they basically want to have more visibility on sort of the community schools, to be able to award, publicly these types of scholarships, even like $500 for to go study some trade or do something or some vocational school. All right. So, I said I'd probably maybe reach out to, Timberlane, and just say that, why not have a representation from the school board if they come in and, maybe ask them to kind of do a presentation, expound on that.
Oh, there used to be a nice program, School to Work. I was one of the ones that founded that years ago, and I don't know what's happened to that, but I don't think it's there anymore.
Which one?
School to Work. I did it, remember? It was Peg Ralph, and it was the junior high level up, and I don't know, Pat Stone, I think, was one of them at the high school, and so was, I don't know who the other one was on that, but we worked very hard on that.
I think it's now called Extended Learning Opportunities, and it
Oh,
is
okay.
kind of like an internship with like the junior firefighters and
Yes.
some other things in the district, and they
Okay.
earn 2 credits, I believe.
Yep,
And
that's-
they learn some portion of a trade or a skill that they can
That's
roll
what it was
into.
basically for, was for trade. I mean, we had some of them going, to the plumbing and which was so low, and it still is. But it was for mostly the trades. There were some that went for teaching too.
Yeah, so now
Uh,
that they have all of that at Salem High School as well as part of their
Oh, okay.
um,
So it didn't stop. Good.
tech. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's still going. It's
Okay.
just in a different form from when you were there.
Okay.
So it's
Good.
expanded and morphed into other things. So that's off to you.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So I asked them to kind of expound on that, and maybe that's something that
Yeah.
I have a meeting with superintendent, hopefully scheduled soon, so I can bring it up.
All right. And if anyone has anything else that again, it's sort of an open agenda. If there's anything that you think that you'd want to have said out loud by the chamber, what are the benefits of being in the chamber? Local businesses, like, what is it, advertising through the chamber? Because I do, again, I do remember that they did talk about the fact that, if you could pay, let's say, for some sort of advertisement through their book of business or their contact list, for, depending what that was. So, I mean, we can ask them all that, like, what is it, just other than just saying that you're a member of the chamber. I think in around Christmas, they did have sort of their little promotional thing, like find the what was it?
The Yeti?
Yes, the
Yeah,
Yeti.
on the Yeti.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing of the Yeti, you take a picture of it, and it's all- but there was
Yeah.
a prize associated with it.
Right.
So it wasn't just take a picture of
No.
like some crazy.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Chamber's a great source to network, phenomenal source to network, phenomenal.
Well,
They usually do them once a month, I think, or
Yeah.
like a after hours thing. I've been to many, but
okay, well, yeah. So that's so. I mean, again, that's sort of like I said, give them an opportunity. And if we're going to talk about economic development, I think talk to the people that kind of do that. I guess.
Right.
Does the town have a grant writer, or is there someone that's keeping an eye on what's coming up? When I was looking through some of these other towns, some of the other towns are behind as well. So when they're referring to different organizations, they're saying there's, grants for economic
Grants.
development through different, organizations. So I don't know if it's, I can't remember what the names were on top of my head. They named two in one of them. But do we have anyone looking for things like,
There would be department heads look for the grants.
okay,
Like the fire chief looks for his grants, the police
Yeah, right, he
chief,
has
recreation
his,
looks for his grants.
Yeah.
Everybody looks for their own grants for each department. And obviously,
We used to.
and you'll have the town manager will look through for grants as well, see if there's anything out there that we're working on.
so there's no one specifically working on behalf, like looking for.
Nope, there's not
grants
one
with the
position
planning.
just for that.
Well, one of the things too is I gotta believe that RPC may have more visibility on grant availability.
Right.
Than,
They are good. at it.
that can be another resource where we could tap into them,
Right?
particularly as it relates to planning, land use.
Yeah, I mean, back to housing,
That's
since
where
that
we
was
got
our
it
most
last
recent interaction with them, is that there was, there was a two-part grant. We qualified for the first part that drove the survey, that drove the analysis, there was some public outreach, and that component of the master plan was being updated.
Right.
We did have, opportunity for another portion of the housing, but I don't know if there was any appetite for that.
That isn't where we wanted to concentrate for this town right now.
Yeah, so, but I would just, again, to that point, I think, just to kind of highlight my credo on this sort of thing, is that if there's free money being offered, to do something where we're not necessarily being committed, to, something, then, I think we should take it, not rule it out. Because even if nothing comes from the stated intent of what we're doing with that grant money, I think it creates the possibility for conversations, follow-on dialogue and things like that. And I, we don't want to rule out, those possibilities just because maybe we didn't, want to proceed down a certain line, So, I mean,
You might find that they're willing to write drafts now on different things, that they're ready to change too. Because if you read that paragraph, they actually are kind of getting away from the housing. Did you read it? That's the impression I got. That they're trying to do other things now. It's not just concentrating
Well,
on the housing.
they're going to go where the money is. Because
Right.
they get funded. This funds them.
Right.
So
yeah,
And I think there was a
pol-
change.
I think politically, I think the landscape has kind of changed, so
yeah.
they might have to like live off the land a little
Yeah.
bit, shall we say.
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right. Nothing else, then I'll
Beautiful.
close this meeting at 7:37. Thank you.
Thank you.